Hello, my friend. I'm genuinely thankful you're here watching this. If you could take a second to hit the subscribe button, it would mean everything to me. It truly would. Now, let's get into the story. At one point, Charlotte Maddox believed nothing could shake her. She'd perfected the way she captured attention, walked into rooms like she owned the air inside them. Every vulnerability was tucked neatly beneath a polished exterior. To the world, her life was enviable. A thriving career in tech consulting, a stylish high-rise in downtown Seattle, and a husband straight out of a fantasy. Cole Maddox was dependable in all the right ways, the kind of man who preheated her car on frosty mornings and checked in just to see how her meetings went. As a lead systems engineer, he was intelligent but introverted, his steadiness once a source of comfort and eventually a slow suffocation. Charlotte thrived on movement, on sparks, unpredictability, anything but stillness. Cole's routine gestures, once sweet, grew stale. Their marriage dissolved into politeness, lukewarm meals, surface-level conversations, and a partnership that flickered but no longer burned. Then came Aiden Shaw. They met at a leadership summit in San Diego. He had that rough-edged charm, a cocky grin, and a gravelly voice that hurled her back to a version of herself she'd nearly forgotten, bold, desired, unrestrained. What started with casual drinks evolved into whispers after midnight, and those turned into stolen nights behind hotel doors. Soon came the deceit. Cole, loyal as ever, didn't suspect a thing. His trust became her armor. For 8 months, she walked a line, one side rooted in Cole's steady world, the other ignited by Aiden's wildfire. But the secrecy began to feel like a prison. She didn't want to sneak around anymore. She wanted approval. That night, she dressed with intention, as if preparing for a crucial negotiation. The apartment smelled like basil and roasted garlic. Cole had made dinner, quiet and careful. Candlelight flickered on the marble countertop. She cleared her throat. "I think we should consider an open marriage," she said. Cole lifted his eyes from his wine glass, slowly. What she saw wasn't shock, it was analysis. His face gave away nothing. "There's someone else?" he asked, voice even. She hesitated. "Yes, Aiden. But I love you too. I want to explore. It doesn't have to mean the end. We could grow from this." He gave one single nod. Then came his reply, 2 words, duly noted. No outburst, no arguments. He didn't even touch his fork again. To Charlotte, that silence felt like success. He hadn't shut the idea down. She believed she was still in control of the story. 3 days later, she came home to an empty apartment. His side of the closet, vacant. Every personal item gone. His toothbrush, missing. Where once handwritten love notes sat waiting, there was now a manila envelope. Inside, finalized divorce papers, a full breakdown of separated assets, evidence of closed financial accounts, and a sticky note in his precise handwriting. "You asked for freedom. Enjoy it." She didn't grasp the full weight of that moment. Not yet. Cole hadn't simply left. He'd orchestrated his exit. She stood frozen, the envelope like a bomb ticking down in her hand. What used to feel like their home now looked like a gallery of her choices. The lights too white, the quiet unbearable. And that note, it etched itself into her bones. She sprinted to the bedroom. Nothing. His clothes were gone. The drawers stripped bare. Even the small wooden box that once held his wedding ring had vanished. In the bathroom, no trace of him remained. No cologne on the counter. No monogrammed towel. Just her reflection. Distant, unfamiliar, hollow-eyed. This wasn't triumph. This was consequence. Panic surged. She dialed his number. Straight to voicemail. Again. Voicemail. Then blocked. She grabbed her laptop. The login failed. The password had been changed. The screen flashed on for a second, revealing a black background and a stark message in white text. "You made your bed. Lie in it. Every document, every email, every trace of their shared digital life wiped clean. She rushed to check their finances. All joint accounts closed, the utilities solely in her name. Investment platforms locked out. This wasn't an impulsive departure. It was a calculated exit, one he'd engineered the moment she uttered the word open. For the next 2 weeks, Charlotte clung to a thread of hope. Maybe he just needed space. Maybe he'd come back, hurt, maybe even furious, but back. Then HR called. "Hi, Charlotte," the rep said with a soft tone. "Just letting you know, Cole removed you from his corporate benefits. We'll need your signature on the waiver." Just like that, her health insurance vanished. That night, Aiden walked in like everything was normal. He tossed his keys on the counter, popped open a beer, and gave her a cocky grin. "Looks like I'm the man of the house now." He didn't ask how she was. Didn't notice her red, swollen eyes or the stiff way she held herself. He assumed he'd stepped into Cole's role. Rent-free living, a stocked fridge, and a woman adrift. But the whirlwind she once craved in him, now it just felt deafening. Within days, his flaws came into focus. He didn't clean up after himself, left laundry everywhere, flirted over loud calls in the hallway. And when Charlotte brought up expenses, "Come on, babe, that's your mortgage, not mine." When she checked the front door's security system and saw it was offline, the reality struck. Cole hadn't just disappeared, he'd cut every cord she once held. Then came the envelope. Plain, no sender, slipped under the door. Inside were crisp, high-resolution photos, time-stamped, captured from within her apartment, the living room, the kitchen, the bedroom, pictures of her and Aiden, laughing, touching, kissing, each shot perfectly composed, deeply invasive. She'd forgotten about the security cameras Cole had installed after a past break-in. She used to tease him for being overly cautious. Now those same cameras held the record of her betrayal. On the back of the final image, scribbled in bold black ink, "Proof. Just in case, sweetheart." It hit her like cold water. This wasn't a breakup, it was demolition. And Cole? He was orchestrating every collapse. 3 days later, Charlotte woke up to a house that was too still. Not peaceful, not restful, just empty. Aiden was gone. No confrontation, no explanation, just a hastily written note on the back of a gas station receipt. "Can't deal with this mess. You're toxic." Toxic. That word sliced through her, especially coming from a man who ridiculed his exes and boasted about ghosting women after weekends away. If even he thought she was poison, what did that make her? It was too much to take in. Charlotte sat on the edge of the bed, the same bed that used to smell of cedarwood and that signature blend of his cologne and comfort. Now it was tainted with the bitterness of old beer and choices made to avoid facing reality. In her hand, she crumpled a creased piece of paper, surrounded by the ghost of a man she'd let drift away. The man who once filled her tank without being asked, who left little rhymes in crossword puzzle margins, who laughed every time her giggle turned into an unfiltered snort. All she had left now were snapshots in her head and echoes she couldn't escape. Cole hadn't lashed out. There was no public fallout, no media storm, no cryptic posts aimed at her character. Instead, he stayed quiet, methodical. He was playing a slow, deliberate game, and Charlotte was steadily being outmaneuvered. She tried to gather the pieces of her composure. The weekend ahead was the community panel, an event she and Cole once ran together. Back when they were the couple people looked up to, admired, envied. She hadn't remembered it was happening until it was too late to cancel. But she went, chose to show up, to pretend she still had dignity worth displaying. She entered the venue with her chin held high, wrapped in a structured blazer that couldn't quite hide the internal unraveling. The looks came instantly, not from curiosity, but condemnation. Whispered words sliced through the air like blades. Gossip spread through the halls like smoke sneaking beneath doors. Still, she moved forward, head up, the ache in her throat. Just exhaustion, she told herself. Just a long week. Then, the moment she would never undo arrived. The moderator, someone Charlotte had mentored, nurtured, stood beside for 2 long years, stepped to the podium. "Before we begin the session on ethical leadership," she said, her gaze scanning the room, "there's something we need to address first." Charlotte felt the chills shoot down her spine. The moderator held up a manila folder. With painful deliberation, she opened it and drew out a stack of photographs, grainy but unmistakable. Charlotte and Aiden, close, too close, on her sofa, in her living room. Each image bore a timestamp, each one counting down like a fuse nearing detonation. The room gasped as a whole. The moderator's voice shook slightly, but her message landed with steady force. "This behavior doesn't align with the values of our organization. We don't govern personal choices, but when those choices become public, there are consequences." She paused. "Charlotte Maddox, your resignation from the board is requested, effective immediately." Silence consumed the room. No one stood up for her. No one whispered in her defense. Charlotte rose on shaking legs, mouth parched, and left in a trance. Every step toward the exit felt heavier, as if gravity itself had turned hostile. Even outside, the air felt thick, more smoke than oxygen. She reached her car, desperate to vanish. But someone had already been there. Taped to her windshield, flapping in the wind, was a blown-up copy of her wedding portrait. She and Cole, foreheads touching, sunlight behind them, the image of a perfect love. Scrawled across it in red ink, "You had it all and you threw it away." Charlotte collapsed into the driver's seat, buried her face in her palms, and sobbed. Not for the scandal, not for the public shaming. The tears came because, for the first time, she saw Cole clearly. He had never been soft, never passive. He'd been precise. And she? She was never his match. Just another piece in his game, and he had just called checkmate. Weeks rolled by, but the fallout didn't die down. It thickened, settled into the corners of her life. Her name vanished from mailing lists, group threads, newsletter mastheads. Invitations stopped coming, boards reorganized, her projects re-examined with cold detachment. Sponsors backed out, allies went silent. Even her own family, unsure what to say, opted to say nothing at all. The quiet was deafening. She tried to keep herself intact, took morning walks, posted curated brunch shots with upbeat captions, clung to a version of herself she no longer believed in. But every day the silence screamed louder. Then, on an otherwise ordinary Thursday afternoon, the doorbell rang. A courier stood there with a sleek envelope and a digital pad. "Signature required for Charlotte Maddox." She scribbled her name, heart knocking against her ribs. Inside the envelope was an elegant invitation, heavy cardstock with gold-foiled edges, the kind of paper that whispered money and intent, clean, modern, meticulous. Just like him. "You are cordially invited to the private launch of Atlas North Ventures, a new investment initiative built on precision, trust, and transformation. Presented by Cole Maddox. Location, the Armitage Ballroom. Date, Saturday, 7 p.m. sharp. P.S. Wear something unforgettable. You'll want to look your best when you see what's become of your past." Her stomach twisted. This wasn't an invitation, it was a performance, a message, a strike. She should have torn it up, burned it, thrown something, anything. But instead, driven by the raw instinct to regain control, she went shopping. Found a dress, painted on drama with smoky eyes, pieced together the illusion of confidence with unsteady hands. Saturday came. The Armitage Ballroom shimmered like something out of a dream. Vaulted ceilings draped with white orchids, gold chandeliers throwing fractured light across polished floors. The crowd, glamorous, moneyed, alert. Charlotte stepped inside and froze. There he was, Cole, commanding the center of the room without effort. Navy tuxedo, perfect pocket square, posture like steel. Around him, people laughed, genuine laughter, relaxed, admiring. He wasn't surviving. He was thriving. At his side stood a woman, brunette, poised, subtle elegance in a midnight blue gown that matched his suit perfectly. Her name? Isla Bennett. Charlotte knew her. The harmless carpool companion she used to joke about. The one who never wore makeup, who never stood out. Now she stood beside him with composed confidence, her arm looped through his, not clinging, just present, an equal. Cole's voice cut through the air. This is Isla, my partner and co-founder. We built Atlas North together. The words hit like shrapnel. One sentence undid her more than any headline ever could. Charlotte stood along the wall, invisible. The woman who used to own every room now blended into the wallpaper. Eventually, he saw her. He approached alone, bourbon in hand, calm as ever. You came, he said simply. She looked up, voice dry. I wasn't sure I should. You shouldn't have, he said, his smile gentle. But you needed to. Her throat burned. Why? He took a sip, then answered, because closure isn't something you're given. It's something you witness. She said nothing, couldn't. I wanted you to see, he added, not out of spite, not revenge, just reality. That I didn't just move on. I rebuilt. He held her gaze for one last second, then turned and walked away. His gaze was gentle, steady as stone. And Aiden? He asked. He reached out a few days ago, said he was sorry, wants to reconnect. I told him it was better if he spoke to you. Cole's lips curled into a quiet smile, not spiteful, just settled, still. He won't, he said, voice calm and certain. They never follow through. Then he turned and walked away, toward Isla, and the quiet life he'd painstakingly stitched back together from the wreckage she once left behind. And Charlotte? She felt like something hollowed out. She hadn't been invited to rejoice. She'd been called to stand witness to the burial of everything she once believed herself to be. That evening, she returned to her apartment in the same luxury heels she once wore to charity galas. Except now, each step echoed with defeat. When she shut the door behind her, the sound didn't welcome her. It sealed her in, like a sentence handed down. She sank into the couch, the satin of her dress folding and wrinkling beneath her, as if even the fabric no longer cared to keep its form, clinging to the ghost of a life that once sparkled with promise. Now it resembled a cage, one built for a version of her that no longer existed. She didn't cry. She was far past tears. What remained was a void. Empty wine bottles spilled from the recycling bin. Her inbox, once a flurry of time-sensitive brand offers, was now a graveyard of unread proposals and polite withdrawals. Even the cleaning service had sent a kind notice. They were trimming their clientele. The hollowness wasn't just the space Cole left behind. It was the world, quietly folding her out of the frame. She picked up her phone, scrolling through photos she hadn't dared to delete. Her and Cole, in Bar Harbor, his arm draped over her shoulder, both squinting at the sun, laughing at a joke time had long since erased. She could no longer see herself in that image. But Cole? He looked unchanged, anchored, serene. Just out of reach now. Her DMs overflowed with unfamiliar names, faceless admiration, none of them his. None of them would ever be. One message sat at the top, unread. Aiden. Hey, I really messed up. Just wanted to say I hope you're okay. I was wrong. You deserved better. She stared at the screen for a long time, then quietly deleted the message. Too late. They always were. Outside, the city kept going, indifferent, untouched. And for the first time, she saw it clearly. Revenge doesn't scream, it doesn't blaze. It whispers. It's the grace of rising above. It's the indifference of someone who walks away without looking back. Cole hadn't yelled. He hadn't blamed or begged. He'd simply stepped out, cleanly, like a surgeon excising something toxic. No spectacle, no malice, just deliberate distance. And it was done. In the weeks that followed, everything he touched flourished. Atlas North Ventures closed massive deals across the country. His engagement to Isla Bennett landed on the cover of Forbes. There they stood, posed before a sleek private jet. The headline read, built together from the ground up. Charlotte read the feature alone, seated on a quiet park bench. There would be no spotlight for her, no dramatic redemption arc, no curtain call, just a woman, seated in a silence so vast it would echo through her for the rest of her life. And that is where the story concludes. If you have thoughts, feel free to leave them below. Thank you for being here. If this story meant something to you, there are more waiting for you on this channel. Until we meet again, dear reader.